Hello, everybody. Welcome in. I am just checking some stuff. Later, I already watched a stream and 2 videos of yours, but I'm here again for more. We always do 2 streams on Mondays now. I am... figure something out real quick. I'm trying to... How does that sound for microphone? Does that sound a little better? Because I'm trying to adjust my mic for the reading streams at least, because I need to keep it without peaking. Oh my god. Sorry, I was just trying to listen. Okay, just seeing how that sounds. I don't... Yeah, no, same. I don't like that. I like this way better. I do not like the way that sounds. Okay, anywho. I'm gonna work on that though, because there's some things I would like to add. There's some things I would like to add though. Sounds good on my side. Cool, babe. Coming in on the boob tubes. Moderator and channel member. I don't even need my second earphone in. I just like to keep one in so at least I can hear my updates and everything. Alright, well, without further ado, let's get into reading. Because we're probably going to keep on it for about an hour, hour and a half. So dehydrated. I haven't drank water all day for some reason. Oh my god. Oh my god, sound alerts. We're gonna turn that down a little bit. Okay, good shit. Alright. So I would like to try to make it at least 3 chapters tonight. If we can make it 3 chapters tonight, we officially hit the halfway mark. Okay. Chapter 30. I don't like it, Solon said. Regnus Gear. Did you guys hear that too? Or was that just me? It's the kitties. Yeah. Yeah. They're probably protesting because I've not been feeding them like I normally do. They're kind of on a schedule now. So they're not overeating. Alright. Anywho, back to reading before we were rudely interrupted by the cats. Chapter 30. I don't like it, Solon said. One sec. My god, everything is just fucking with me right now. Alright. Anywho. I'm peeking into the red. That's not good. Okay. Nope. Okay. Kitties are being awful right now. Anywho. My knee. Thank you, owl. Okay. Chapter 30. I don't like it, Solon said. Regnisgear stared into the winds that blew his silver hair almost straight back. The twins were quiet today, so there was only the sound of the wind rushing over the wall. He listened to the wind as if it were trying to tell him something. After 10 years, a summons, Solon said. Why would the king do such a thing on the eve of your son's majority? What's the best reason to gather all your enemies in one place? Regnis asked, barely raising his voice enough to be heard over the wind. It was still cold even in the late spring. Screaming Winds was never warm. The north wind cut through wool, made a mock of the beards and long hair that men grew to hold some extra iota of heat in. To smash them, Solon said. Better to smash them before they can gather, Regnis said. King knows that I'll do everything in my power to go home for my son's ascendance. That means traveling fast. That means a small escort. Clever of him not to command a small escort, Solon said. I'd have put such subtlety beyond him. He's had 10 years to think about this, my friend, and the help of his weasel. His weasel was Fergan Safasti, a magus who was not exactly Shosendi's finest moralist. Fergan also knew Solon by sight and would gladly tell the world Solon was a magus if he thought it would cause mischief. Fergan was why Solon had been staying with Regnis year-round as Logan took more responsibilities at court. It was, he was beginning to think, a serious mistake. So you think they'll attack us on the way? Solon asked. Regnis nodded into the wind. I don't suppose I'll be able to convince you not to go, Solon asked. Regnis smiled, and Solon couldn't help but love the man. For all that it had crippled his house and destroyed any ambitions Regnis might have had for the throne, taking command of Screaming Winds had given Regnis life. There was fire in Regnisgear, something fierce and proud like a warrior king of old. His command had clear authority, and the power of his presence made him Father King. Father King, oh, Father King. Father King and brother to his men. In the simple fight against evil, he excelled, he even reveled. The Highlanders of Calidor, some of whom had never bowed the knee to any man, were warriors. They lived for war, thought it was disgrace to die in bed, believed that only immortality was immortality, through the deeds of arms sung by their minstrels. They called Regnis the Rustak Slagan, the devil of the walls, and in the last 10 years, their young men had smashed themselves against those walls, tried to climb them, tried to sneak past them, tried to bribe their way through them, climbed over the twins and tried to descend on Screaming Winds from behind. Every time, Regnis had crushed them. Frequently, he did it without losing a man. Screaming Winds was made of 3 walls at the 3 narrowest points in the only pass between Sonaria and Calidor. Between the walls were killing fields sound thick by Regnis engineers with caltrops, pits, snares, and deadfalls of rock from the surrounding mountains. Twice clans have made it past the first wall. The traps had reaped such a harvest of death that none had survived to tell what they found beyond it. Sometimes I wonder if I'm having an active stroke. You know, it's possible to have a mini stroke and not even know it. It's something to watch out for. The whole smelling toast thing, yeah, that's just for funsies. That's not a real thing. So if you smell toast, you smell toast. It could be genuine, I suppose, Solon said. Logan says he has become close friends with the prince. Maybe this is the prince's influence at work. I don't think much of the prince, Regnis said. But he thinks a lot of Logan. We can hope that the prince takes after his mother. This may even be her work. Regnis said nothing. He wouldn't say Nalia's name, not even now. Hope for the best, plan for the worst, Solon asked. 10 of our best men, extra horses for all of us, and go down the coast road instead of the main road? No, Regnis said. If they set one ambush, they'll have set 2. We might as well make them play their gambit on open ground. Yes, sir. Solon only wished he knew who the other players were. You still write letters to that Kaede woman? Solon nodded, but his body went rigid. His chest felt hollow. Of course the commander would know. A letter sent every week. Never one received. Well, if you don't get a letter after this one, at least you'll know it's not because yours are boring. Regnis clapped a hand on Solon's shoulder. Solon couldn't help but smile ruefully. He didn't know how Regnus did it, but somehow in his company it was as easy to face heartbreak as it was to face death. Mama Kay sat on the balcony of an estate that had no business being where it was. Against all tradition and sanity, Roth Grimson's opulent estate had been built in the middle of the Warrens. She didn't like Roth and never had, but she met a few people in her work that she did like. Fact was, she had to deal with Roth because she couldn't afford to ignore him. He was one of Sakage's rising stars. Not only was he intelligent, but everything he touched seemed to turn to gold. After the Guild Wars, he had emerged as the guild head of the Red Bashers and had promptly taken over half of the Warrens. Of course, the Sakage had stepped in, only beginning with Durzo's assassination of Corbin Fischl, but it had taken years to get things truly settled. There had been, of course, curiosity among the Nine at how Roth had managed his guild so well that they'd claimed so much territory. And Roth obviously hadn't liked her questions, but he'd accepted them. A word from her and he'd never... Oh my god, I'm missing a whole ass chunk of print. There's like a little chunk of print right here missing. He never on the Nine, another word and he'd be dead. He was smart enough to know that. Roth was in his late 20s, a tall, formidable young man who carried himself like a prince among dogs. Close-set blue eyes, dark hair, a penchant for fine clothing. Today he wore a gray tunic decorated with the plangan knotwork that was just coming into fashion. Matching breeches and high boots worked in silver. He wore his black hair lightly oiled, a wavy lock sometimes drooping into his eyes. If you ever tire of working for our master of coin, you do well in one of my brothels. The men would adore you. She threw that one out just to see how he'd take it. He laughed. I'll keep that in mind. With a wave, he signaled the servants to bring their breakfast. Their little table graced the edge of the balcony, and they sat beside each other. Apparently, Roth wanted her to admire his estate. Probably he was hoping she'd ask why he'd built there. She didn't want to give him the satisfaction. Besides, she'd already looked into it. The reasons were good enough, she knew. He had some waterfront which would allow him to do some smuggling, though the dock was too small for high profitability and royal attention. He'd also been able to purchase the land for pittance. Though he'd had to hire so many bashers during the construction, he'd lost the savings. When the poor had been displaced, both the honest and the thieves among them had been eager to steal whatever they could from the fool who would build a manse on their side of the river. Bashers had probably beaten hundreds. Mama Kay knew that they had killed at least half a dozen. It was death to be found on Grimson's grounds without permission. The walls were high, lined with crushed glass, and metal spikes that stood as pointed shadows in the dawn. Bashers manned those walls, men who were both efficient and enjoyed their work. None of the locals tried to intrude anymore. The amateurs had either already tried and paid the price or knew of others who had. The professionals knew they could cross Vanden Bridge and find easier pickings. His gardens were beautiful, if given to flowers and plants that kept low to the ground, so his archers didn't have their killing angles obscured. The plants of vermilion, green, yellow, and orange of his gardens were a stark contrast against the grays and dingy browns of the Warrens. The servants brought the first course, halved blood oranges with caramelized sugar crust. Roth opened with a comment on the weather. Not a particularly inspired choice, but Mama Kay didn't expect more. He moved on to commenting on his gardens as the servants brought hot sweetbread. He had the newly rich's irritating propensity for revealing how much things had cost. He should have known that she would be able to tell from the quality of the services and the meal exactly how much he was spending on his estate of his. When would he get to the point? So there's going to be an opening on the 9, Roth said, abruptly done. He should have divulged an amusing anecdote from his work and used that to lead here. Mama Kay was starting to doubt this one. Yes, she said. She let it sit. She wasn't going to make this easy. The sun was just rising above the horizon, and the sky was turning a glorious orange. It was going to be a scorching day. Even at this hour, she barely needed the shawl around her shoulders. I've been working with Phineas Saratzen for 6 years. I know the job better than anyone. You've been working for the Trematier, not with him. His eyes flashed, but he said nothing. Dangerous temper, then. Master Grimson didn't like to be corrected. I think your spies must not be smart enough to have seen the amount of work I do versus what that old man does. She lifted an eyebrow. Spies? Everyone knows you have spies everywhere. Well, everyone knows. It must be so, then. Oh, I see, Roth said. One of those things everyone knows, but I'm not supposed to mention because it's rude. There are people within this organization with whom it is dangerous to be rude, boy. If you're asking for my vote, you do well to make a friend of me. He motioned to the servants, who took their plates and replaced them with cuts of spiced meats and lightly broiled egg dish with cheese. I'm not asking, he said quietly. Mama Kay finished her eggs and began on the braised meat. Delightful. The man must have brought a chef from Gandu. She ate and looked at the lightning sky, the sun rising slowly over the great iron gate to Grimson's estate. If he took that comment back, she'd let him live. I don't know how you have such influence on the Nine, but I know I need your vote, and I will have it, Roth said. I will take your vote, or I will take your niece. The meat that a moment ago had seemed so delightfully spiced, that seemed to melt in Mama Kay's mouth, suddenly tasted like a mouthful of sand. Pretty girl, isn't she? Adorable little braids. It's so sad about her mother dying, but wonderful that she had a rich aunt to find her a place to live, and in a castle itself, no less. Still, a rich old whore ought to have done better than have her niece raised by a serving woman. She was frozen. How did he find out? Her ledgers were done all in code. But Phineas Thratson was the Sakage's master of coin. He had access to more financial records than the next 5 people in the kingdom combined. Roth must have followed the records and found payments made to a serving woman in the castle. She was a frightened woman. A single threat from Roth and she'd have folded. Roth stood, his plate already empty. No, do sit. Finish your breakfast. She did, mechanically, using the time to think. Could she spirit the girl away? She couldn't use Durzo for this, but he wasn't the only wet boy she knew. I am a cruel man, Guinevere. Taking a life is... Roth shivered with remembering ecstasy. Better than any of the pleasures you sell. But I control my appetites, and that's what makes us human rather than slaves, isn't it? He was pulling on a thick leather glove. The portcullis of his gate was rising as he spoke. Outside, Mama Kay saw dozens of ragged peasants gathered. Obviously, this was a daily ritual. Below, 4 servants were carrying a table laden with food into the garden. They set it down and walked back inside. These wretches are slaves to their appetite. Slaves, not men. The starving peasants behind pushed forward, and those in front were pushed aside. They looked at the spiked portcullis above them, and then at Roth and Mama Kay, but their eyes were mostly on the food. They looked like animals, hunger driving them wild. The young woman made a break for it. She sprinted forward. After she had only taken a few steps, others followed her. There were old men and young women. Women, children. The only thing they seemed to have in common was desperation. Mama Kay couldn't see the reason for their frenzy. They reached the food and tore into it, stuffing pockets full of sausages, stuffing their mouth full of delicacies so rich they'd probably be sick later. A servant handed an arbalist to Roth. He was already drawn and loaded. What are you doing? Mama Kay asked. The peasants saw him and scattered. I kill by a very simple pattern, Roth said, lifting the weapon. He pressed the trigger plate and a young man dropped with a bolt in his spine. Roth set the point of the arbalist down. But instead of cranking the winch to draw back the string, he grabbed the string with his glove and drew it back by hand. For the barest moment, black tattoo-like markings rose up as if from beneath the surface of his skin and writhed with power. It was impossible. He shot again, and the young woman who had been at the first to run for the table fell gracelessly. I feed my little herd every day. The first week of the month I kill on the first day, the second week the second day. He paused as arbalist drew level again. He shot and another woman dropped as a bolt blew through her head. And so on, but I never kill more than 4. Most of the peasants were gone now, except for one old man moving at a crawl toward the gate that was still 30 paces distant. The bolt clipped the old man's knee. He fell with a scream and started crawling. The slaves never figure it out. They're ruled by their bellies, not their brains. Roth waited until the old man reached the gate, missed a shot, then tried again, killing him. See that one? Mama Kay saw a peasant come in through the portcullis. All the others had scattered. He's my favorite, Roth said. He figured out that pattern. The man walked inside, unafraid, nodded to Roth, and then went to the table and started to eat without haste. Of course he could tell the others and save a few lives, but then I might change the pattern and he'd lose his edge. He's a survivor, Guinevere. Survivors are willing to make sacrifices. Roth handed the arbalist and the glove to a servant and regarded Mama Kay. So, the question is, are you a survivor? I've survived more than you'll ever know. You have your vote. She'd kill him later. There was no showing weakness now. No matter how she felt, he was an animal, and he would sense her fear. Oh, and I want more than a vote. I want Durzo Blint. I want the Silver Kakari. I want much more. And I'll get it with your help, he smiled. How did you like the braised peasant? She shook her head, distracted, looking blankly at her empty plate. Then she froze. In the garden, servants were collecting the bodies and bringing them inside. You did say pheasant, she said. Roth just smiled. Damn! Roth is a fucking... Oof, they made him nasty in this. Oh. Alright. Chapter 31. Well, if you don't look like the south end of the northbound horse, Logan said as he intercepted Kyler in the middle of the Drake's yard. Thanks, Kyler said. He stepped past Logan, but his friend didn't move. What do you want, Logan? Logan asked. He was a picture of innocence. At least, if a picture of innocence could be so tall. Nor was he able to get by with a big oaf routine. For one thing, Logan was far too intelligent for anyone to take a dumb act seriously. Excuse me. For another, he was too damn handsome. If there were a model of perfect masculinity in the realm, it was Logan. He was like the heroic statue made flesh. 6 months a year with his father had lined his big frame with muscle and given him a hard edge that had more than just a young woman of Sonaria swimming. Perfect teeth, perfect hair, and of course ridiculous amounts of money that would be his when he reached 21. In 3 days. Filled out the picture. He drew almost as much attention as his friend Prince Eileen, and even more from the girls who weren't interested in being bedded and then dropped the next day. The saving grace was that he had absolutely no idea how attractive he was or how much people admired or envied him. It was why Kyler had nicknamed him Ogre. Logan, unless you were just standing in the yard, you came out here when you saw me come in the gate. It means you were waiting for me. Now you're standing there rather than walking with me, which means you don't want anyone to overhear what you're about to say. Sarah isn't in her regular place 2 steps behind you, which means she's with your mother shopping for dresses or something. Embroidery, Logan admitted. So what is it? Kyler asked. Logan shifted from one foot to the other. I hate it when you do that. You could have let me get to it on my own time. I was going to... Hey, where do you think you're going? Kyler kept walking. You're stalling. All right, just stop. I was just thinking that sometime we ought to pull out of the old fisticuffs. Logan said. Fisticuffs? People expected that someone so big to be so big to be dumb. You'd beat me black and blue, Kyler said, smiling the lie. They fought. Logan would ask questions. He'd wonder. It was unlikely, but he might even guess that it hadn't truly been 9 years since they'd last fought. You don't think I'd win, do you? Logan asked. Ever since Logan had been humiliated in the fight at the stadium, he'd gotten serious about training. He put in hours every day with the best non-Sakage swordmasters in the city. Every time we fought, you slaughtered me. Once. And that was 10 years ago. 9. Regardless, Logan said. If you caught me with one of those anvils you pass off as your fist, I'll never give up, Kyler said. That was true enough. I'd be careful. No match for an ogre. Something was wrong. Logan asked him to fight about once a year, but never so strenuously. Logan's honor wouldn't allow him to push a friend who'd made a decision clear. Even if he didn't understand why. What's this about, Logan? Why do you want to fight? Lord Gear looked down and scratched his head. Sarah's asking why we don't spar with each other. She thinks it would be a good match. Not that she wants to see us get hurt, but... Logan trailed off awkwardly. But you can't help but want to show off a little, Kyler thought, he said. Speaking of good matches, when are you going to march into the headsman block and finally marry her? Ogre breathed a big sigh. All of his sighs were big, but this was a proportionally big sigh. It took a while. He grabbed a stable boy's stool and sat on it, oblivious of his fine cloak dragging in the dirt. Actually, I spoke with Count Drake about that couple of days ago. You did? Kyler asked. And? He approves. Congratulations! When'll it be, you big about to be unbachelored bastard? Ogre stared at nothing, but he's worried. Are you joking? Logan shook his head. But he's known you since you were born. Your families are best friends. She's marrying up in terms of title. Way up. You've got great prospects and you two have been practically betrothed for years. What can he possibly be worried about? Logan fixed his eyes on Kyler's. He said you'd know. Is she in love with you? Oof. No? Kyler said after too long a pause. Logan noticed. Is she? Kyler hesitated. I think she doesn't know who she loves herself. It was a lie of admission. Logan was on the wrong track. Sarah didn't love Kyler, and he didn't even like her. I've loved her for my whole life, Kyler. Kyler didn't have anything to say. Kyler? Ogre stared at him intently. Yes? Do you love her? No. Kyler felt sick and furious, but his face showed nothing. He'd told Sarah she had to confess to Logan, demanded it, she'd promised she would. Logan looked at him, but his face didn't clear the way Kyler expected it to. Sir, a voice behind Kyler. Kyler hadn't even heard the porter approaching. Yes? He asked the old man. A messenger just came with this for you. Kyler opened the unsealed message to avoid looking at it. To avoid looking at Logan, it read, You must see me, tonight, at the 10th hour, Blue Boar, Jarl. Chilling shot through Kyler. Jarl. He hadn't heard from Jarl since he'd left the streets. Jarl was supposed to think he was dead. That meant Jarl was either seeking him because he needed Kyler Stern or because he knew that Kyler was Azoth. Kyler couldn't imagine any reason that Jarl would need to see Kyler Stern. Jarl knew who he was. Who else knew, too? Master Blint was already gone. Kyler would have to see him. He'd have to take care of this on his own. I have to go, he said. He turned and strode toward the gate. Kyler, Logan said. Kyler turned. Do you trust me, he asked. Logan raised his hands helplessly. Yes. Then trust me. The Blue Boar was one of Mama Kay's nicest brothels. It was off Sidled Way on the east side, not far from the Tamoy Bridge. It had a reputation for having some of the best wines in the city. A fact not a few merchants mentioned when their wives asked awkward questions. Brent told me she saw you go into the Blue Boar today. Yes, of course, dear. Business meeting. Wonderful wine selection. It was Kyler's first visit. The brothel had 3 stories. The first, where food and wine were served, resembled a nice inn. A sign denoted on the second floor as the lounge, and the third room as guest rooms. Hello, my lord, a breathy voice said next to Kyler as he stood awkwardly just inside the entrance. He turned and felt his cheeks growing hot. The woman stood very close to him, close enough that the spicy scent of her perfume wafted over him. Her voice was pitched low and inviting, too, like they shared secrets or soon could. But that was nothing compared with what she was wearing. He had no idea if it would be called a dress, for though it covered her from neck to ankles, it was made entirely of white lace. It wasn't a tight pattern, and she wasn't wearing anything underneath it. Excuse me, he said, pulling his gaze back up to her eyes and blushing even deeper. Is there any way I can help you? Would you like me to bring you a glass of Sethi Red and explain our range of services? She seemed amused at his difficulties. No, thank you, milady, he said. Perhaps you'd prefer to come to the lounge and speak with me more privately, she said, running a finger along his jawline. Actually, I'd, prefer not to. Thank you all the same. She arched an eyebrow at him, as if he had suggested something devilish. Normally I like a man to warm me up a little, but if you want to go straight to my room, I'd be— No, Kyler said, then realized he'd raised his voice and people were turning to look at him. I mean, no thank you. I'm here to see Jarl. Oh, you're one of those, she said, her voice abruptly normal. Then the switch was total, jarring. Kyler noticed for the first time that she wasn't even his age. She couldn't be more than 17. Involuntarily, he thought of Mags. Jarl's in the office, that way, she said. Now that she'd abandoned seducing him, Kyler saw her differently. She looked hard, brittle. As he walked away, he heard her say, Seems the good-looking ones always hoe the other row. He didn't know what she meant, but he kept walking, worried she was laughing at him. He was halfway through the tables on his way to the office when he looked back. She was plying her trade with an older merchant, whispering something in his ear. The man beamed. Kyler knocked on the door of the office. The door opened. Come in quickly, Jarl said. Kyler stepped inside, his mind awhirl. Jarl, for it was undoubtedly his old friend, had grown into a handsome man. He was impeccably dressed in the newest fashion, his tunic indigo silk, his pants tight falskin adorned with the belt of worked silver. Jarl's dark hair had been woven into a multitude of small, long braids, each oiled and drawn back. He had an appraising look in his eyes. There was a slight sound of cloth on cloth from the corner, someone moving toward Kyler from behind his field of vision. Kyler kicked instinctively. His foot caught the bodyguard in the chest. Though the guard was a big man, Kyler could feel ribs cracking. The man flew backward onto the wall. He slid down and lay on the floor, unmoving. Scanning the rest of the room in an instant, Kyler saw no other threats. Jarl had his hands spread to show he had no weapons. He wasn't going to attack you. He was just making sure you didn't have weapons, I swear it. Jarl looked at the man on the floor. By the High King's balls, you've killed him! Scowling, Kyler looked at the man, sprawled unconscious in the corner. He knelt by him, put his fingers against the man's neck. Nothing. He ran his hands across the man's chest to feel if one of the broken ribs might have penetrated his heart. Then he slammed his fist down on the man's chest. And again. What the hell are you? Jarl cut off as the man's chest suddenly rose. The bodyguard coughed and moaned. Kyler knew that every breath would be agony for the man, but he'd live. Get someone to take care of him, Kyler said. His ribs were broken. Eyes wide, Jarl went into the main room, and came back a few moments later with 2 more bodyguards. Like the first, they were big and brawny, and looked like they might be able to use the short swords at their sides. They merely glared at Kyler, and picked up the big man between them. They carried him out of the room, and Jarl closed the door behind them. You've learned a thing or two, haven't you? Jarl said. I wasn't testing you. He insisted on being here. I didn't think... Never mind. After a moment of staring at his friend, Kyler said, You look well. Don't you mean, how in the 9 hells did you find me, Jarl? Jarl laughed. How in the 9 hells did you find me, Jarl? Jarl smiled. I never lost you. Never believed you were dead. No? You never could get anything past me, Azoth. Don't say that name. That boy's dead. Is he? Jarl asked. That's a shame. Silence sat in the room as the men looked at each other. Kyler didn't know what to do. Jarl had been his friend. Azoth's friend, anyway. But was he Kyler's friend? That he knew who Kyler was, maybe had known for years, told Kyler that he wasn't an enemy? At least not yet. Part of Kyler wanted to believe that Jarl just wanted to see him. Wanted a chance to say goodbye, that they'd never been afforded on the street. But he'd spent too many years with Master Blint to take such a naive view. If Jarl had called him in now, it was because Jarl wanted something. Oh, hey, Ariel. Sorry, I just saw it. I don't know how long ago that was sent. I'm sorry. We are literally almost halfway through the book, so I'm trying to get there. We've both come a long way, haven't we? Jarl asked. Is that what you brought me here to talk about? A long way, Jarl said, disappointed. Part of me was hoping you hadn't changed as much as I have, Kyler. I've been wanting to see you for years, ever since you left, really. I wanted to apologize. Apologize? I didn't mean to let her die, Kyler. I just couldn't get away much. I tried, but even sometimes when I did get away, I couldn't find her. She had to move around a lot, but then she just disappeared. Never even found out what happened. I'm so sorry. Tears gleamed in Jarl's eyes, and he looked away, his jaw clenched tight. He thinks Aileen is dead. He blames himself. He's been living with that guilt for all these years. Kyler opened his mouth to tell him that she was alive, that she was doing well from all the reports he got, that sometimes he watched her from afar on the days she went out shopping. But no sound came. 2 can keep a secret, Blint used to say, if one of them is dead. Kyler didn't know Jarl now. He was managing one of Mama Kay's brothels. So Jarl certainly reported to her, but maybe he reported to others as well. It was too dangerous. Kyler couldn't tell him. Relationships are ropes that bind. Love is the noose. The only thing that kept Kyler safe was that he knew that no one knew there was a noose with his name on it. Even he didn't know where Aileen was. She was safe somewhere on the east side, maybe married by now. She would be 17 after all, maybe even happy. She looked happy, but he didn't even sneak close. Master Blint was right. The only thing keeping Aileen safe was Kyler's distance. Jarl's guilt wasn't enough to outweigh Aileen's safety. Nothing was. Damn it, Master Blint. How do you live like this? How can you be so strong, so hard? Never held it against you, Kyler said. It was pathetic. He knew it wouldn't help, but there was nothing more he could offer. Jarl blinked, and when he met Kyler's eyes, his dark eyes were dry. If that were all, I never would have asked you to come. Durzo Blint has enemies, and so do you. That's not exactly news, Kyler said. No matter that he and Blint never spoke about the jobs they did, and that anyone who knew of their work firsthand was dead. Word got out. Word always gets out. Another wet boy attributed a job to them. Client would brag about who he'd hired. They had enemies they'd wronged, and more enemies they only thought that Durzo had wronged them. It was one of the costs of being the best. The families of the debtors never attributed a success hit to a second-rate wetboy. You're good. This is so relaxing. Projects at the moment are done, and your reading streams really help my brain to chill. Oh, nice! Hell yeah! They're good books. This is the only book I've ever, or trilogy I've ever read by Brent Weeks. But I'm assuming he has good stuff, because it's more on the lines of like fantasy fiction, magic type of dealio stuff. This is about assassins and like old-timey stuff, kingdoms, kings, things like that. Do you remember Roth, one of Rat's bigs? Kyler asked. Yes, apparently he's smarter than we ever realized. After Rat died, well, everyone left like the guild was burning down. The other guilds moved in and took our territory. Everyone had to scramble to survive. Roth didn't make any friends when he was Rat's right hand. He nearly got killed half a dozen times. Apparently he always blamed you, me, for killing Rat. If you hadn't killed him, no one would have dared come after Roth. He never believed you were dead, either. But he hasn't been in a position to find out who you became. That's changing. Kyler's chest was tight. Does he know I'm alive? No, but he'll sit with the 9 within the year, maybe sooner. There's a spot open right now that he's trying for. From a position of that kind of power, he'll find you. I haven't even met him, but the stories I hear, he's a real twist, cruel, vengeful. He frightens me, Kyler. Frightens me like no one since you know who. So that's why you invited me here? So you could tell me that Roth is coming after me? Kyler asked. Yes, but there's more to it, Jarl said. There's going to be a war. War? Hold on. What's your part, Jarl? How do you know all this? Jarl paused. You spent the last 10 years under Master Blint's tutelage. I've spent the last 10 years under Mama Kay's. Just as you've learned more than fighting, I've learned more than fornicating. This city's secrets flow through its bedchambers. That was Mama Kay speaking, for sure. Why are you helping me? A lot's changed since we were guild rats stealing bread. Jarl shrugged, looked away again. You're my only friend. Sure, when we were children. Not you were, you are. You are the only friend I have ever had, Kyler. Trying to beat back his sudden guilt. How long had it been since he thought of Jarl? Kyler said. What about everyone here, the people you work with? Co-workers, employees, clients. I've even got something like a lover, but no friends. You've got a lover and she's not your friend? Her name's Stefan. She's a 53-year-old cloth merchant with a wife. Her name's Steven. She's a 53-year-old cloth merchant with a wife and 8 children. He gives me protection and beautiful clothes, and I give him sex. Oh, suddenly the whore's muttering about hoeing the other row made a lot more sense. Are you happy here, Jarl? Happy? What the hell kind of question is that? Happy doesn't have anything to do with it. I'm sorry. Jarl laughed bitterly. Where'd you get your innocence back? Kyler, you said Azoth was dead. What are you talking about? Are you going to leave now that you know I'm a bugger? No, Kyler said, you're my friend. And you're mine. But if I hadn't seen you nearly kill Gurk just now, I'd wonder if you were really a wet boy. How do you kill people and keep your soul intact, Kyler? He gave the name a little twist. How do you keep your soul intact and whore? I don't. Me neither, Kyler said. Jarl went quiet. He studied Kyler intently. What happened that day? Kyler knew what Jarl was asking. Tremor passed through him. Durzo told me if I wanted to be his apprentice, I had to kill Rat. After what he did to Doll Girl, I did it. Easy as that, huh? Kyler debated lying, but if anyone deserved the truth, it was Jarl. He'd suffer more at Rat's hands than anyone. After holding back about Doll Girl, he couldn't do it again. Kyler told him the whole story, like he hadn't told anyone since Master Blint. The description of the gore and how pathetic Rat had been didn't move Jarl. His face remained passive. He deserved it, and then some, Jarl said. I only wish I had the nerve to do it. I wish I could have watched. He dismissed it with an effeminate wave of his hand. I've got a client coming, so listen, Jarl said. Kalidor is going to invade. Different parts of the Sakage have been mobilized, but they're most likely smokescreens. Probably only the 9 know what's really happening. Maybe only the Shinga. I can't even tell which side we're going to take. The thing is, we can't afford for Sonaria to lose this war. I don't know if the 9 realize that. The Ursals have put forward claims on Sonaria for generations. Several months ago, God King Ursel demanded the tribute of some special gem and free passage, claiming to be more interested in taking war to Modai than here. King Gundr told them where he could go, and it wasn't across the king's highways. A source told me the God King vowed to make us an example. He's got more than 50 witches, maybe many more. I don't think King Gundr can field 10 mages to stand against them. But the Sakage will survive, Kyler said. Not that he gave a damn about them, he was just thinking about the Drakes and Logan. The Caledorans would kill him. The Sakage will survive, Kyler, but if all the businesses are burned down, there's no money to extort. If all the merchants are broke, they can't gamble or go whoring. Some wars we could profit from. This one will ruin us. So why tell me? Durzo's in the middle of it. Of course he is, Kyler said. Probably half of the nobles in the army's chain of command are trying to off their superiors so they can take their places. But Master Blint wouldn't take a job that would seriously endanger the city, not if things are as bad as you say. Jarl shook his head. I think he's working for the king. Master Blint would never work for the king, Kyler said. He would if they had his daughter. His what? Ooh, sounds like something I would like reading. It's got a little romance in it. It does, but not a whole lot. I will say the last book did make me cry, though. We lose some people in the last book, and it's saddening. But we are on chapter 32. We are one chapter away from being halfway. Making some good progress here. Ah. Don't forget, I did put out an announcement. Where's my activity? Not my activity. Where's my YouTube? Hold on. Yeah, there's my YouTube live control panel. But no, I did put out an announcement. Wednesday, tune into the stream on Wednesday because I will be handing out 10 gifted memberships for the YouTube channel, so you guys get all the perks that come along with that. So you get the early access, you get priority response, automatic hearts, unless you guys, you know, there's people out there that will pay to troll too. If they pay to troll, then I'm not going to give them a heart. But yeah, priority response to comments is members only Discord, which honestly is a pretty fun place. I got a couple things lined up for that already. Actually, excuse me, come back. Actually, I have a video. It was a cut game that didn't make to the public YouTube because I just didn't vibe with it. I don't know. I didn't like it, surprisingly. Very surprisingly. But that is currently going to be up tomorrow in the Discord for people who want to watch it. That'll be the members only Discord though, so be sure to sub so you get the exclusives. So cool, so proud of all the stuff you're doing and working on. It's been a lot. I still have a lot to work on. I readjusted my camera a little bit too, so it's like, yeah. But yeah, so we got that going. I still haven't got an update. I still haven't got an update on my book. It's not even shipped yet, so we'll still continue the Night Angel trilogy on lives until we're done. But the members only disc reading videos, like I said, they're only going to be about an hour long, and I'm going to go ahead and add sound effects to it. There's not going to be any chatting like this or talking or end of chapter like I'm going to go over this is what I think. It's just going to be reading. That's it. So it's something you could put on, listen to, fall asleep to, kind of dealio. Fun stuff though. We made it pretty far on Conker's Bad Fur Day earlier too. Oh goodness, I'm so tired and I have to get up at 3:30 to look at the blood moon because I really want to see that, and then I have to get up at 6 to give Tuna her insulin and then edit videos tomorrow and hopefully record some stuff because I have to record another video. That's another thing. That audio was so messed up. For some reason I got it sorted. I had to put the audio on a specific channel. For some reason it worked fine the first time and then decided to take up all audio channels, so I recorded both my mic and the game audio on one single track and I couldn't separate it. So luckily it was exactly what I thought I was going to get going into the game, so it's not going to be a bad replay. But if you guys want to see the original footage, it's going to be in the members only Discord. Along with the, original footage to Perceptum. So Perceptum was re-recorded too. So what you're going to see on the public Discord is, that was acting. This is what I like about late night streams. We have fun over here. Alright, so let's get to chapter 33. Oh my goodness. Oh, mascara is bothering my eyes right now. Chapter 32. Lord General Aegon stood in the middle of the brushed white gravel of the castle statue garden and tried not to look as uneasy as he felt. Damn fine place to meet an assassin. Ordinarily, he would think it would be a fine place to meet an assassin. Though Brent had ordered him not to bring soldiers. If he had been of mind to do so, there were any number of places for them to hide. Of course, that this meeting was happening within the castle grounds should have also made Aegon feel better. It might have, if Brent had been the one who suggested it. The night wind blew a cloud across the moon, and Aegon strained to hear the slight crunch of gravel that could herald Brent's arrival. He had no doubt that Brent could make it into the castle. His memory was as sharp as the daggers that they'd once found under the royal pillows. Still, he had his orders. He looked at the statues around him. They were heroes, every one of them, and he'd wondered what he was doing in their company. Usually his garden was a haven. He would walk onto the serene white and black rock and stare at these marble heroes, wondering how they might act if they were on his shoes. Tonight, their shadows loomed and lingered. Of course, it was his imagination. But he still remembered that Brent had been in this bedroom 10 years ago, ready to do murder. Nothing was safe with a man like that. There was the slightest crunch of gravel under one of the statues. Aegon turned and, without thinking, gripped his sword. "Don't bother," Durzo Brent said. Aegon whipped back around. Durzo was standing not 2 feet away. Aegon stepped back. "The noisy one was one of yours, not me," Brent smiled, wolfishly. "But wait, didn't I tell you not to bring men?" "I didn't," Aegon said. "Mm-hmm." "You're late," Aegon said. He had his equilibrium back now. It was unsettling dealing with a man who didn't value life. He believed that Brent really didn't. Now, there was a rationale behind it too. The only way he himself could deal with Brent was to realize that he could be killed. But that wasn't important. His life or death wasn't why he had summoned Brent. His life or death wasn't vital to what they would talk about. Still, a part of him asked, "How could wet boys live like this?" "Just making sure I knew where all your soldiers were hidden," Brent said. He was wearing a killing outfit. Aegon realized queasily. Tunic of mottled dark gray cotton, thin but cut for easy movement, pants of the same material, a harness with a score of throwing weapons, some of which the general didn't even recognize. What he did recognize was that the points of some of those weapons bore more than steel. Poison? Bluffing? Aegon hadn't brought soldiers. Even if his life wasn't vital to this discussion, he wasn't going to throw it away. "I keep my word, even to a Sakage thug," he said. "The funny thing is, I believe you, Lord General. You're many things, but I don't think you're either dishonorable or stupid enough to betray me. Are you sure you don't want me to kill the king? You have the army. If you're smart and lucky, you might be the king yourself." "No," Aegon said. "I keep my vows." Only those words didn't burn as I spoke them. "I'll give you a discount," Brent laughed. "Are you ready to hear the job?" Aegon asked. "Seems we've had this conversation before," Brent said. "My answer remains the same. I only showed up because I miss your smiling face, Lord General. And to show that your, let's be honest, rather pathetic defenses still can't keep me out, should you choose to try to make my life difficult. You haven't even heard what the job is. The king respects your talents now. He will pay better than anyone has ever paid you. He wishes you to protect his life." "I know. Hugh Gibbet took a contract on him." Durzo ignored the stricken look on Aegon's face. "Sorry, I won't take the job. I'd never take the job for that foul sack of wind. Let's be honest. Eileen Gundar, who ridiculously fashions himself the Ninth, as if he had any connection to the previous 8 kings who bore the name Eileen, is a waste of skin." Someone burst out from under the tall statue of Duke Gundar behind Aegon. Aegon's heart sank as he recognized the man's gait. Eileen Gundar the Ninth threw back his hood. "Guards! Guards!" Archers and crossbowmen sprang up from every balcony, bush, and shadow in sight. Others came running from the perimeter of the garden. My liege, what a surprise, Blint said, sweeping into a perfect court bow. Who would have expected to find you hiding in your father's shadow? You shit! The king yelled. What are you doing? He yelled at the guards. Surround him! The guards surrounded Durzo, Aegon, and the king in a tight circle. They looked nervous to have the king standing so close to a wet boy, but none of them dared invoke the king's ire by forcibly separating them. Your Majesty, Aegon said, stepping in front of the king before the man tried to hit Durzo. Blint. You will work for me, assassin, the king said. No, I've said it before, but maybe you need to hear it yourself. I'm willing to kill you, but I won't kill for you. The guards were less than pleased by this, of course, but Aegon held up a hand. With the guards pressed so close, the archers were useless. Brilliant, Your Majesty. If it came to bloodshed, both he and the king would die, and he'd give the even odds that Blint wouldn't. Fine then, the king said. Fine then, Blint smiled joylessly. The king smiled back. We'll kill your daughter. My what? King's smile grew. Look into it, he laughed. A dangerous second stretched out, and Aegon wondered if he was about to be holding a dead king in his arms. Then there was a blur of motion. Even though he was looking right at him, Durzo Blint moved faster than his eye could follow. He flipped up over the circle of soldiers, caught a statue, and changed his trajectory. A moment later, there was a scuttling sound up the side of the castle wall, akin to a cat's claws scraping as it climbed a tree. Startled, one of the soldiers discharged his crossbow. Mercifully, it was pointed into the air. Aegon shot a look at the man. The man swallowed. Sorry, sir. King walked inside, and it was only 2 minutes later that Aegon realized how close Durzo had brought him to speaking treason in front of the king. Tyler felt the air stir as someone opened the front door of the safe house. He lifted his eyes from the book in front of him and reached for the short sword unsheathed on the table. He had a perfect view of the door from his chair. Of course, Master Blint wouldn't set up his workroom any other way, but he would have known it was Master Blint just by the sound. Click, click, click. Click, click, click. Click, click, click. Master Blint always locked, unlocked, and then relocked every lock. It was just another of his superstitions. He didn't ask his master about the job. Blint never liked to talk about the job right after it. The Night Angels didn't like it, he said. Kyler interpreted that. Let my memories fade. The vial of white asp venom was sitting on the table with the rest of Blint's collection, but to distract himself as much as Blint, Kyler said. I don't think it'll work. I've been looking over your books. They haven't got anything about this. They'll write a new book, Blint said. He started putting the poison blades in special cases and wiping off the ones bearing poison that spoiled over time. I know animals can eat some poison, and it doesn't make them sick, and I know their meat will make you sick if you eat it. Our experiments have proved that. But then your debtor's just sick. That's fine as far as it goes, but this dual poison thing? I don't get it. Blint hung up his weapons harness. Your debtor eats the pork. He feels nothing, maybe a little tipsy. He eats the quail. He gets dizzy. He eats both. He gets dead. It's called potentiation. The poisons work together to reach their full potential. But you've still got to get the entire pig and a flock of quail past the food tester. Big places use multiple testers. By the time they suspect anything, the debtor's dead, Blint said. But then you poison everyone in the room. You can't control... I control everything, Blint shouted. He threw a knife down and walked out, slamming the door so hard it set every weapon on the wall jingling. Gotta go. I'm starting to get sleepy. Have a wonderful night. You too. Have a good rest of your night. Get some good rest. If you're still here to hear that. Eileen stared at the blank page and dipped the drying quill back into the ink pot. Further down the table in the Drake's dining room, Mags and Ilena Drake were playing a game of tiles. Mags, the older sister, was concentrating intently, but Ilena kept glancing at Eileen. Why, Eileen said, do I always get crushes on unattainable men? Eileen Cromwell had been friends with Mags and Ilena Drake for years. The gap between a servant and a count's daughters should have precluded friendship, but the Drakes counted all as equal before the one god. As they'd grown older, the girls had become more aware of how odd their friendship was, so it had become more private, but no less real. That groundskeeper Jen was unobtainable, Ilena said, moving a tile. Mag scowled at the move and then at her 15-year-old sister. That lasted 2 hours, Eileen said, until he opened his fat mouth. He must have had a crush on Pole at some point, Mag said. Not really. He just loved me so much I thought I should love him back, Eileen said. At least Pole was real, Ilena said. Elena, don't be a brat, Mag said. You're just mad because you're losing again. I am not, Mag said. I'll win in 3 moves. You will, Mags looked at the tiles. You little snot. I, at least, am so glad you turned pole down, Eileen, Mag said. But it does leave you without an escort to our party. Eileen had abandoned the quill and buried her face in her hands. She sighed. Do you have any idea what I wrote to him last year? She stared at the blank paper in front of her. Didn't know Pole could read, Elena said. Not Pole, my benefactor. Whatever you wrote, he didn't stop sending money, did he? Elena asked, ignoring her sister's murderous glance. Elena Drake was only 15, but most of the time she seemed in pretty good control of Mags, if not her older sister Sarah. He's never stopped, not even when I told him that we had more than enough money. But it's not about the money, Eileen said. Last year I told him that I was in love with him. She couldn't quite bear to confess that she'd smudged the ink with her own tears. Told him I was going to call him Kyler, because Kyler's nice, and I never found out my benefactor's name. And now you do like Kyler, and you've also never talked to. Totally hopeless. Why do I let you talk to me about boys? Elena asked. Elena can't help but talk about Kyler, Mag said with the air of big sister about the pull rank, because she has a crush on him herself. I do not, Elena shrieked. Then why'd you say so in your journal? Mag said, Mag's voice lilted, mimicking Elena's. Why won't Kyler talk to me? Kyler talked to me today at breakfast. He said I'm sweet. Is that good, or does he just see me as a little girl? It's gross, Elena. He's practically your brother. You witch, Elena yelled. She leapt over the table and attacked Mags. Mags screamed, and Eileen watched, frozen between horror and laughter. The girls were screaming, Elena pulling Mag's hair, and Mag starting to fight back. Eileen got to her feet, figuring she'd better stop them before someone got hurt. The door crashed open, almost blowing off its hinges, and Kyler stood there, sword in hand. The entire atmosphere of the room changed in the blink of an eye. Kyler exuded a palpable aura of danger and power. He was primal masculinity. It washed over Eileen like a wave that threatened to yank her from her feet and pull her out to sea. She could hardly breathe. Kyler flowed into the room in a low stance, the naked sword held in both hands. His eyes took in everything at once, flicked to every exit, to the windows, the shadows, even to the corners of the ceiling. The girls on the floor stopped, a handful of Mag's hair still clenched in Elena's hand, guilt written all over their faces. His pale, pale blue eyes seemed so familiar. Was it just Elaine's fantasies that put the flicker of recognition in them? Those eyes touched hers, and she felt a tingle all the way up her spine. He was looking at her. Her! Not her scars. Men always looked at her scars. Kyler was seeing Eileen. She wanted to speak, but there were no words. His mouth parted as if he, too, was on the edge of words, but then he turned white as a sheet. His sword flashed back into its sheath, and he turned. Ladies, your pardon, he said, ducking his head. Then he was gone. Good God, Mag said. Did you see that? It was scary, Elena said, and intoxicating, Eileen said. Her face felt hot. She turned away as the girl stood. She sat and picked up the quill, as if she could write now. Eileen, what's going on? Mags asked. When he saw my face, he looked like death warmed over, Eileen said. Why? He'd barely even looked at her scars. That was what scared away most of the boys. He'll come around. You're an angel. Give him a chance. We'll ask him to the party for you and everything, Elena asked. No, I forbid it. He's a baronet, Lena. A poor baronet whose lands have been taken by the Lenat. It's just another unattainable man. I'll get over it. He doesn't have to be unattainable, if he joins the faith. In the eyes of the god, all men are created equal. Oh, Lena, don't dangle that in front of me. I am a serving girl. A scarred serving girl. It doesn't matter what the god sees. It doesn't matter what the god sees? Mags asked gently. You know what I mean. Logan might marry Sarah, and that's as big a gap as there is between a poor baronet and you. A noble marrying a lower noble is frowned on, but a noble marrying a commoner? We're not saying you should marry him. Just let us ask him to the party. No, Eileen said. I forbid it. Eileen, that's final. Eileen looked at the girls until each grudgingly gave their assent. But, she said, you could tell me a little more about him. Kyler, Count Drake called out as if Kyler tried to sneak past his office to get up the stairs. Would you come in for a moment? There was nothing but to obey, of course. Kyler cursed inwardly. Today was turning into a long day. He'd been hoping to get a few hours of sleep before doing his pre-dawn chores for Master Blint. He had a good idea what this was about, so when he stepped into the Count's office, he had to try not to feel like a boy about to have his father explain sex to him. The Count hadn't been touched by the years. He would look 40 if he'd lived to be 100. His desk was in the same place, his clothes were the same cut and color, and when he was warming up to a difficult conversation, he still rubbed the bridge of his nose where his pince nez sat. "Have you made love to my daughter?" the Count asked. Kyler's chin dropped. So much for warming up. The Count watched him expressionlessly. "I haven't laid a hand on her, sir. I wasn't talking about your hands." Kyler goggled. This was the man who talked about the god as often as most farmers talked about the weather? "No, don't worry, son, I believe you, though I suspect it hasn't been for any lack of effort on Sarah's part." The blood rushing to Kyler's entire face was the answer enough. "Is she in love with you, Kyler?" He shook his head, almost relieved to be asked a question he could answer. "Think Sarah wants what she thinks she can't have, sir." "Does that include making love to numerous young men, none of whom is Logan?" Kyler spluttered. "I hardly think it's right or honorable for me to—" The Count raised his hand, pained. "Which is not the answer you would have given if you thought the charge was false. You'd have said absolutely not. And then that you didn't think it was right for an honorable for me to ask. And you'd have been right." He rubbed the bridge of his nose and blinked. "I'm sorry, Kyler. That wasn't fair of me. Sometimes I still use the wits the god gave me in dishonorable ways, trying to do what's right, whether or not that measures up with what men call honorable. There's a gap between those, you know." Kyler shrugged, but no answer was required. "I'm not interested in condemning my baby girl, Kyler," the Count said. "I've done far worse in my life than she'll ever dream of, but more than her happiness is at stake. Is Logan aware of her indiscretions?" "I asked her to tell him, but I don't believe she has, sir." "You know that Logan has asked for my permission to marry Sarah?" "Yes, sir." "Should I give him my blessing? I'd hope to gain a better son. For my family, it would be wonderful. Is it right for Logan?" Kyler hesitated. "I think he loves her," he said finally. "He wants to know within 2 days," the Count said. "When he turns 21, he takes possession of the Gear household and becomes one of the richest and most powerful men in the realm. Even given now, the king has interfered with his house in the last decade. 6th in the line of succession. First behind the royals. People will say he's marrying beneath himself. They'll say she isn't worthy of him." The Count looked away. "I don't usually give a damn what they think, Kyler, because they think it for all the wrong reasons. This time, I'm afraid they'll be right." Kyler couldn't say anything. "I've prayed for years that my daughters would find the right men to be their husbands, and I've prayed that Logan would marry the right woman. Why doesn't this feel like the answer?" He shook his head again and squeezed the bridge of his nose. "Forgive me. I've asked you a dozen questions you can't possibly answer, and haven't asked you the one you can." "What's that, sir? Do you love Sarah?" "No, sir." "And that girl, the one you've been sending money to for almost a decade?" Kyler flushed. "I've sworn not to love, sir." "But do you?" Kyler walked out of the room. As Kyler stepped into the hall, the Count said, "You know I pray for you too, Kyler." Damn. Oh. Eileen is Doll Girl, by the way, for those who've missed the past few episodes. Eileen is Doll Girl, and Doll Girl doesn't remember who Kyler was. Kyler was Azoth. Azoth took care of Doll Girl in the slums, in the guilds, in the warrens. And basically, when he got out and went with Durzo, he was able to get her out and send her off to a family to take care of her. And that family just so happened to be coinciding with his life. And he's sending her all that money all this time, so it's pretty intense, but we're gonna call it there. We're gonna keep it at an hour. I have to get some rest tonight because, like I said, I have to be a little early 2 times, 3:30 to see the blood moon and 6 o'clock to give Luna her insulin. And I got a long day of editing videos tomorrow, and I probably got to record at least 2 because re-record at least 2. But yeah, Wednesday night at 6 p.m. you guys don't forget, tune in. I'll be gifting away memberships on YouTube. So we'll get the memberships on YouTube. You can join the members only Discord. Have fun with seeing exclusive content you don't get to see in public places. It's awesome. I also have an unlisted video going up tomorrow for members only in Discord. So yeah, this isn't going to be on the YouTube itself. I am going to copy the link. The only way to be able to find this video is if you join members only Discord. So yeah, there will be members only videos on YouTube, like I said, but there are also some of them where you can only find the links in the Discord. So join Nerner's Backrooms. Hope to see you there. Have a wonderful rest of your night, Wanderers. Don't clip through the